morning's reading was written by the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, as a document to introduce the brand, the new brand. So I'm going to read it for you. Great brands provide compelling answers to 3 simple questions. Who are you? What do you do? And why does it matter? When the answers are different or unique, relevant, and simple, they engage. They inspire connection, action, and transformation. When these answers are consistent, they strengthen our brand. When they are not, they erode the core of our brand. We've decided that at this time we need to revision our brand in order to better tell our story. Who are we? We are Unitarian Universalists. We are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. We are believers in what is good, what is right, and what is just. We are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, and spirituality, but aligned in our desire to practice our faith and beliefs in tangible ways. We have a track record of standing on the side of people, love, justice, and peace. Our faith has always been motivated by the desire to contribute to the greater good. We are a house without walls, a congregation without spiritual boundaries, a movement towards a more action-oriented faith and beliefs. Simply put, we are a guided path towards a better you and a better world. What are we doing? We are doing. It starts with engaging the conversation that leads to tangible change in people and in the world. We are building an action-oriented community by bringing together people of all races, religions, and creeds with a shared desire to make faith, religion, and spirituality a verb. 7 days a week, UUs live their faith by doing, whether in community with others or as an individual. We have a moral responsibility of active, tangible expressions of love, justice, and peace. Why does it matter? This question remained unanswered. I kid you not. I want to start today by reading something to you that I wrote it back in October 2011. I was answering the question, what kind of ministry do I envision for myself? It was part of the standard questions included in a minister's search packet for all the congregational search committees to read. I think the idea behind this question was to give the search committees a snapshot to see what my vision of ministry lined up to what their desires for their congregation, what kind of minister they were looking for. I decided to read this to you today for 2 reasons. First, I was giving an answer that was less about my ethereal aspirations, but more true to form, more nuts and bolts how I viewed my ministry. I was articulating my brand of ministry. The second reason that I chose to read this to you today was because I had realized that over these last year and a half, that only 6 members of this congregation have ever read this, the 6 members of the search committee. And if I'm right, Elgin is the only person here who even knows this document exists. I wanted to correct that today. So here goes. Mine is a ministry of the heart. I believe that every one of us wants to know that we are loved and that we are not alone. Therefore, my ministry is based on inclusive love and a welcoming sense of belonging. I have envisioned myself on Sunday morning standing at the front door of a church, greeting and welcoming both the well-seasoned member and the first-time visitor. My hopes and dreams for ministry start there in this key moment, because mine is a ministry of the heart, where the stranger will always be welcomed. From there, I will lead this congregation in meaningful worship, and I will preach a sermon that is both inclusive and heartfelt. It is said that every minister has one good sermon, and mine is centered on inspirational hope. I will lift you up, and I will encourage you to love your whole self. And there I will receive and welcome the stranger in each one of you. It is my belief that the great challenges of life often leave us strangers to ourselves. So I will sit with the young man, once healthy, now learning what it is to recover from an illness. I will sit with the longtime spouse, grappling with what it means to be the new widow. I will celebrate with the young couple discovering the joys and challenges of parenting. And I will mentor the doubtful student who will someday graduate with honors. I will show up and I will be present. I will listen to you. And we will journey together on these new paths. My emotions are because it's so true. And finally, it is my great hope that together we become a strong voice in this community that speaks towards justice and embodies the spirit of social responsibility, working towards the greater good. Get this. I envision myself of being a minister of a church that is a strong, beautiful landmark in the community, not because of its building, but because of its people. I wrote that before I ever even knew you existed. I did not even know when I wrote that there was an All Souls Community Church of West Michigan. In October of 2011, in our Unitarian Universalist faith, the ministry that I was proposing, and I'll be honest with you, I was promising, was not all that common. I was talking about radical inclusion. But who better to understand the meaning of radical inclusion than a young church that goes by the name All Souls? All Souls is not an easy name to live up to. The sign does not say some souls. It does not say the few selected souls we've agreed upon. It says all souls. And that name is the most challenging of all. So as we continue to grow and we continue to welcome new people into our community, we also continue to redefine who we are. Now I know that this has pushed some of you, all of us, out of our comfort zone. We are trying to find the balance on many issues, and we have certainly not figured anything out yet. For each one of those issues, be it theology or race or gender or class or orientation, some of us will have a huge learning curve ahead of us. And some of us will seem really very impatient. This automatically creates tension among us. So while we're figuring it out, I am going to ask each and every single one of you one thing. I am going to ask you to assume actions of goodwill. Assume goodwill first. By design, we are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, spirituality. But when you are able to find common voice, and we become able to practice our faith and beliefs in tangible ways, that's fantastic. So hang in there. And please assume goodwill first. Unitarian Universalism has long been a faith tradition based on reason. But again, I was proposing a shift to elevate compassion to the same level as reason. Who better to understand this than a congregation who clearly expressed one main desire in their new minister? The desire that their sermons would both engage their mind as well as their heart. A faith based solely on reason is a faith that has a sole focus on Sunday mornings. But when you add compassion to be equal to reason, you add a faith that is focused on social justice as well. And social justice adds meaningful engagement throughout the week. Engagement with other faith communities, and engagement with community organizations. This is a shift from being an inward-focused congregation and an outward-serving community. 7 days a week you live their life and live their faith by doing. And we have begun to do that here. This evening and for the next few days, we will be supporting families in a housing crisis. Thank you, Anne, for all your work with that. We'll be working with Family Promise and Plymouth UCC. This is how we live our faith beyond Sunday mornings. Whether in community or with others, we have a moral responsibility to achieve tangible expressions of love, justice, and peace. Unitarian Universalists have a track record of standing on the side of people and love and justice and peace. Last year we began engagement in public witness efforts. This coming Wednesday is the monthly marriage equality protest down by Rosa Parks Circle. We've been doing this for about a year. And my hope is that this coming Wednesday, it'll be our very last one. Because we are waiting for Judge Friedman's ruling on this issue. Wouldn't that be great? And on March 27th, there are plans in the work for another protest rally in Grand Rapids. And this one would focus on immigration reform. And this protest would engage other faiths. In fact, the first faith that told me about it were the Dominican sisters. And then I got an email from the United Church of Christ. And then I got an email from the Unitarian Universalists. I do hope there's a Unitarian Universalist presence on that day. They're still working out the details. We are part of a faith that has always been motivated by the desire to contribute to the greater good. Now back to what I said at the beginning, my final and probably most uncommon idea to offer was the concept that a church, the church building, not be the symbol or landmark that identifies who a community is. I was saying it should be what the people do, not the bricks and mortar. Who better to understand it but this congregation? This uncommon idea, however, is quickly making sense to many other congregations, not in just our UU circles, but across all faiths. Our churches need to become houses without walls, congregations without spiritual boundaries, a movement towards a more action-oriented faith. Our current relationship with the Havas is forward-thinking. We're on the cutting edge. We're ahead of people. Both the Havas and Plymouth are keenly aware of these trends, and that's why they offer the building to other faith communities. Both of them do this. Plymouth offers it to a Korean Christian church, a United Church of Christ church. A Havas offers it to us. That's, to me, that is a true leap of faith between both communities. This focus shifts us away from what is different about us and builds on common ground what we hold in common. And this is how you build good partnerships. Now, this week at the Board of Trustees meeting, Danny Harris reported that we were accepted into Festival. We will have a food booth at Festival in June. Danny said that we were accepted, but that we were not able to do our original idea of walking tacos, or walking together tacos, as we wanted to call them. Instead, she said, we're going to do nachos. And without missing a beat, Mary Scott said, nacho, ordinary church. Brilliant. It was brilliant. And it was true. Folks, we are a young congregation, and we do business differently, or slightly differently than most other faith communities. We are a church that welcomes all souls, and we do that. We are also a church or a congregation without a building. We are not your ordinary church, indeed. So why? Why are we even looking at this today? Well, mainly because the Unitarian Universalist Association a couple weeks ago made a couple of huge announcements. And after I reviewed all of their material, I walked away with the belief that All Souls is ahead of the curve, that we are on the current trends of our denomination, and I thought it was important for me to lift that up with you today. On Valentine's Day, the Unitarian Universalist Association sent out a press release. The announcement said the UUA brand story, that was the title. It said the Unitarian Universalist Association is making changes. Changes in where we do our work, how we do our work, and how we tell our story of Unitarian Universalist movement to the wider world. It sounds like we may actually get that elevator speech we've been looking for all these years. That would make it a little easy. The Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley, the UUA Program Strategy Officer, said that this new initiative came out of the growing realization that the Unitarian Universalist Association and our congregations, that would include us, have been inconsistent about the message that we put out into the wider world about UU. We've not been very good about speaking to people who don't know anything about who we are. We've never come up with a succinct way to say our faith and share it with others, she said. We want to encourage congregations to think about the messages their congregations are sending out into the world that does not know anything about us. That includes thinking about how their buildings look to guests, structures in their service, their programs, if they are inwardly focused congregation or outwardly serving communities, and what their online presence looks like. Following these statements, the UUA revealed its new logo to the public. And to be honest, that logo that I showed you during the Time for All Ages got mixed reviews. Now that should not surprise anyone in this room that logo got mixed reviews. And I'll say it this way. After all, one of our greatest strengths is that we have a diversity of thought and opinion. With the new logo and the developing brand story, combined with the sale of the UUA headquarters located on 25 Beacon Street in Boston, one can honestly and sincerely say there are major changes underway at the UUA. But many of our churches have already started to bristle or resist or protest these changes. They're not sure of what they are suggesting. But I would say most of these ideas validate or support what we are doing here. I think what we are doing here is current and relevant to today's world. We are actively engaged in cultivating both the community and the human spirit. Or as the UUA put it in their document, we are guided on a guided path towards a better you and a better world. And finally, what surprised me the most about their official announcement was that the UUA did not answer the third question, why does it matter? They said it was important, yet it's nowhere to be found. I checked. I looked everywhere. Then I had Linda check to make sure I wasn't missing anything, and she confirmed it was not there. They did say that this was a work in progress, but why does it matter? Seems to be a pretty serious omission. But I am going to assume goodwill first. It is also true that we should not need the UUA to tell us why it matters. We don't need them to provide the answer to that question. I hope that, anyway. I hope that each one of us can provide an answer to that question. Maybe it is as simple or complex an answer as somebody who says, I want to make the world a better place, and that includes me. Or maybe there are about 100 answers to this question. But then I came to realize something most important of all, why it matters. The answer to that question is really what your answer is that matters most. How you answer it matters most. Amen. Oh, you called an emotional minister. What can I say? We are building a land. We are doing it. And that takes work, but we are doing it. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go in peace and know that you are loved. Amen.